What's going on, guys? Really excited to do this video. I got asked on my Q&A video by Nick, do I have any pro aspirations now? This could have been a piss take, but I'm taking it seriously because it is a question I have gotten before. Racing at the domestic level in Australia on a UCI Continental team, am I trying to go pro? Do I want to go pro? Things like that. So I'm going to answer that all in this video. So firstly, what even qualifies me to be answering this question, to be even in the ballpark of thinking about going pro? So if you don't know me, a bit of history. I've raced at a UCI Continental level since 2018. So for those of you that don't know, the UCI, which is the governing body of cycling, has three sort of professional ranks. You've got the UCI Continental level, which is teams like Nero Continental. So in those sorts of teams, you don't have to get paid a salary. So most riders aren't paid, but it gives you access to bigger races. So UCI 2.2 and 2.1 events where you'll be racing against bigger teams. So I have found myself in the past going up against some World Tour teams, which I'll get into in a bit. There's then two ranks above that. So above the Continental level, you've got the Pro Team level, where there are mandatory salaries and you're officially a professional cyclist. And then the World Tour above that, which is all the teams you'd be familiar with, like Ineos. So since 2018, I've been on the first level of the UCI ranking, a UCI Continental. In 2018, I was with Mobius Bridgelane and then with Nero since then. Not just to name drop, but I've been around riders that have gone pro. So I've raced with Rob Stannard, now riding for Mitchelton Scott. Jay Vine, obviously last year, riding for Alpes and Phoenix. Alex Evans, who now rides for Intermarché Wanty, I think they're called, a World Tour team. And then Connor Brown, who now rides for Quebec and Nextash. So I've been on teams and raced with riders who have gone to the World Tour. So I've been in that sort of scene. And then in terms of the races I've done, this is what gives me the sort of experience and knowledge to be commenting on this sort of stuff, is I have raced against World Tour teams. So a complete name drop here. I'm going to list all the World Tour teams that I have raced against directly in races over the past 3 years. Jumbo Visma, Mitchelton Scott, Israel Cycling Academy, Team EF, Trek Segafredo, BMC Racing Team when it existed, and Team Sunweb. So those are teams that I've raced with. I've been around them at the dining halls, seen them on races. So I kind of have got a pretty good idea of what goes on in some of those teams at most of the races. And just finally on my history, I have had a year where I was training full time. In 2017, I was pretty much just training full time, trying to trying to go pro or improve as much as possible and see where I can get to. Now, a year is really not long enough, but I have had that time spending with the aspirations of going to a pro. So I have aimed to do that at some point in the past. So then why aren't I pro? Why didn't I go pro? And I've come up with 4 main reasons. I might be looking down because I've got some notes taken here, but I'm going to run through the 4 reasons why I'm not pro. First reason is I've never got a standout result that would put me front and center in front of a pro team. I've just never gotten that result. I've got some results at a National Road Series level here in Australia. I've got a win at a stage in a UCI 2.2 race over in the Philippines, but none of those results are anything that would stand out to a pro team or a World Tour team. So I just don't have that check against my name that puts me up there in terms of the rankings. Second reason is I'm just not good enough physically. In terms of what rider style I guess I'm an all-rounder, more of like a time trialist, breakaway sort of style of rider. I'm a sort of 75, 76 kilos, just more of a sort of a strong man. But physically, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough climber. I'm not a good enough sprinter. I'm pretty strong on the flat, but if I go over and race in Belgium or Holland, which I've done, I've raced over in the Netherlands, there's probably hundreds of riders that are just as strong as I am on the flats. So physically, I am just not good enough. That's the truth. Third reason is I don't have the skill or the mindset to be a pro. What I've realized over racing is most good professional cyclists are somewhat adrenaline junkies. Now, not everyone is. There are some riders that can manage to get through and they don't love the adrenaline rush, the thrill of racing in the bunch. But most pro cyclists are a bit nuts. And people don't realize that. It's kind of, in some way, it's seen as like a gentlemanly sport. You know, you race your bike, you go up your climbs, blah, blah, blah. But it's a shit fight in the bunch. It's really horrible, scary. You're going at speed. So you have to be a little bit, most pro riders are a little bit nuts, a little bit crazy. And I don't have that. I'm a bit too level-headed. I'm not much of an adrenaline junkie. So I don't have that switch where I just don't give any fucks and will just send it and do whatever it takes. And just on that, if that sort of part of the sport, the racing in the bunch, the fighting elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, railing corners, absolutely sending it. If that's not a part of the sport that you either enjoy or at least can tolerate, then as a pro, you're not going to have much fun because you're having to do that nearly, day in, day out, you're racing, rubbing shoulders. So if that's not something you enjoy and you really don't like it, like me, then why would you be a pro cyclist? Because you're going to absolutely hate pretty much every race you do. Fourth reason, and this could probably seem like a bit of an excuse, but it's true, is that the pathway to become a professional cyclist in Australia is extremely limited. There's really two options. You can either win Zwift Academy, like Jay did, and get a contract, or you can get on a team that will give you racing exposure overseas, and maybe if you really dominate in some of those races, a World Tour team will take notice of you. People will sometimes say that the national championships in Australia is a good opportunity to get noticed. I think that's totally debunked and has been proven wrong time and time again. Michael Freeberg bloody won the nationals, didn't get a spot on a World Tour team. Marcus Cooley the other year, got on the podium, probably one of the strongest riders there on the day, and didn't get a spot on even a pro team. So maybe at the, and even actually not even at the under-23 level, because Tom Benton, who won the under-23 road race this year, he is over racing in Europe now, but that didn't really seem to get him noticed, even by the Australian national team for some of the under-23 races over in Europe. So the whole all nationals is your shot to go pro, I think, is not the case. It's been proven time and time again to not work. So really, if you're racing in Australia, the chance that you go pro is not that good. You really have to be an exceptional athlete to make that bridge. So that answers why I'm not pro. I'm just, really it comes down to I'm just not good enough. But then in terms of, people ask, well, you're racing in Australia, you seem to do a lot of training. Like, are you trying to go pro? Like, what's the deal? Why are you racing your bike? So I've got 5 main points I want to cover in terms of this, do I want to go pro sort of thing. So just off the bat, just to reiterate again, I don't want to go pro. I'm not trying to go pro. The second thing a lot of people don't realize is pro cycling isn't glamorous. Unfortunately, like, I'd love to go and do a Grand Tour. Rock up and do the Tour de France would be awesome. Like, that would be amazing. But that's not what pro cycling is. That's 1% of a pro rider's calendar if maybe they get selected. 99% of the pro racing that pros do is really not glamorous and is really shit. It's like crappy pro kermesses in Belgium. It's shitty races in France where you're staying in a shit hotel. You're living out of a suitcase. It's really not, in my opinion, not really that enjoyable of a lifestyle to live. So what else do I think would suck about being a pro cyclist? Obviously, I'm not one, so take this with a grain of salt, but from my experiences, this is what I've seen. Constantly traveling. Now it could be seen as a good thing, but really the way you do it when you're a pro isn't great. I mean, if I wanted to go on holidays and see something, I've got a job, I've got money, I could just book a holiday and go see it. And even racing with Nero, we're going to get to race in Asia, so I'm going to get that sort of traveling experience, and I'm doing it on my own terms. So the constant traveling, the living out of the suitcase sucks as a pro. Riding in shit weather, like, it's all well and good seeing the Tour de France on a nice sunny day and the crowd's cheering, it's amazing. But there's all the other shit days in the freezing cold or the stinking hot. It's raining, it's some crappy race no one cares about, no one's really watching. Those are all the days that a lot of people don't see. Other thing is the constant stress of the bunch and crashing. Like, that is a reality of racing. If you're racing in the bunch, it's an extremely stressful job to have to do. And remember, pros aren't just doing a couple races a year. They're racing week in, week out. And it's a very stressful thing to do and not something that I would enjoy. Final thing here is being a pro cyclist can be pretty lonely. If you've got a good setup overseas, like I know some of the guys based in Girona, they've got a little crew of pro riders that they sort of mingle with, and it seems pretty fun. But for a lot of pros, it can be pretty lonely. You're sort of living over there, you're away from your family. If you don't have a pretty tight-knit community, it can be a pretty lonely experience. So it's something people don't realize. Next point is that I don't feel like I haven't made it in cycling in some way, even though I haven't gone pro. I'm quite content to train and race domestically or at a continental level. For me, that is really a satisfying thing to do. I love training. I love pushing myself to get fitter. And for me, going and testing myself in just a UCI 2.2 race in Asia is a really great experience and fun, and for me is a really awesome thing to do. And actually some of my most fond memories, not even just in cycling, but in life in probably the past 4 or 5 years, have been those races I've done. So the NRS races I've done, like a Tour of the South Coast where I finally got my NRS stage win, or in the Tour of Philippines where I won that stage. That's like, you know, to a pro, that's just such a shit kicker race. But to me, I trained a lot for them. They meant a lot to me. Like, I've bloody got that is a jersey from Tour of the Great South Coast in 2017 where I had the leader's jersey. I've got that up on my wall, which people might cringe at, but I trained a lot for that, and it means a lot. And I really enjoy racing at the level I'm doing. So for me, just because I haven't became a professional cyclist, I don't feel like I'm missing out on that much. So next point is that I kind of get the best of both worlds. I get the ability to travel over to Asia and race, and I kind of get to do it on my own terms. If for whatever reason I'm busy at work or I'm just not feeling it for a couple of months, I can just say to the team, I need to sit this one out. I'm too busy, I don't want to do it. So I kind of get to train and race on my own terms, which is really amazing, especially because I work full time, so I've got other stuff on. So it's really cool that I can, if there's a race I want to do, decide to do that on my own terms. And then my final point for this video is that I earn more money now than most pro cyclists. That's just how it is. World Tour cyclists earn good money, but if you're at the bottom of the World Tour or on a pro Conti or a pro tour team, you're not earning very good money and you're really working hard for it. So I'm quite lucky that I work full time, I still get to race my bike, and I get the best of both worlds. I get to work, I get to earn good money, but I still get to race my bike. And for me, that's a really great thing, and I'm very privileged to be able to do that. So that's it, guys. I certainly haven't lost the bug. I do look forward next year when travel opens up to be able to go overseas, do some racing with Nero Continental and still test myself. But yeah, hopefully that provided you with a bit of information, a bit of insight, and you enjoyed it. So I'll catch you in the next one.